the industry from various domain of and user experience in overall, and to learn from them. And we started it in the name of expert talks, as it's quietly evident, and we got a chance to connect with few 5 or 6 experts from various organizations such as Google, and even Ria Tosa. So Ria was also a part of SAP. She was also one of our experts sometime back. And the entire motive why we conduct this session is just to learn from each other, and sitting at home, connecting virtually, and spending some time on a weekend in a way. So it's the motive that we have. And it's an initiative by the Interaction Design Foundation Kolkata chapter. So for one who doesn't know about the Kolkata city, so it's a city located in the eastern part of India. Because I see there are few people who have joined in from other parts of Europe and USA also, if I'm not wrong, other than Alice. So it's for
Yes,
them.
you know you.
So yeah, so yeah, it's a city. It's our hometown, yes, and it's called the City of Joy. And yeah, so we thought let's connect all the like-minded designers from the city and connect over a virtual discussion regularly on a regular basis. And hence, I hope we would have a lot of questions for all of us, including Alex, and we would try to find some time towards the end of the session or along the as we process, and we would try to connect with all of you. So just stop if you want to, if you have any question or anything to share, please share it with us. Yeah.
Mhm. Great. Thank you so much, Romy, for this beautiful introduction.
Yeah.
And I also
Thank
maybe
you, Alex.
building on your invitation. I mean, if you participant, you would like to use the chat, just to introduce yourself. Now that Romy also mentioned that maybe not everybody's from Kolkata, so feel free to put in the chat where you're from, and yeah, then we can see maybe some variation, and also maybe if you like, and to give us a quick hint, are you a student? Are you maybe even still in school? Are you, doing a PhD, or are you a young professional or an experienced professional? So we get a little bit of information from your side as well. Like Romy said, it's we're gonna have like 2 parts. So I will do the presentation about the topic you've seen in the registration, and then I feel also that that's quite an important part. We'll open up for question and answers towards this topic, and then we'd like to open like a panel discussion amongst all of us, so that you can ask questions about any UX education or design education, some career paths, and of course also about the IDF chapter, Kolkata or Design Kolkata, and so that it's we get some discussion and panel at the end. Right. Good. So I think then I think we could start, right? Are we
Yes,
okay?
I think we can start. We
Wonderful.
can start.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. So as Romy invited me, and like the whole chapter and Design Kolkata invited me to this talk, we also talked about what could be interesting for you as participants, and I learned about what usually the participant structure is, and I'm a user researcher, like by trade. I'm working for SAP in Germany. SAP is a software company, and I found that it's extremely important in my practice, and not only as a user researcher or UX designer, but also in other cases, like when you do workshops, when you prepare maybe a university assessment, if you are maybe registering for a conference, or want to do a tutorial at some university gathering, and all of this, where it's extremely important that we know what should we do. What are we heading to? What is important that we at the end have achieved. So we're talking about goals. And I just found that, focusing on a little bit time, taking the time to talk to your stakeholders, to talk to your, maybe tutors at university, your managers, or anybody who you're going to be working with, and you want to reach this goal together, and that you first talk about these goals. What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? And then start talking about how do we get there. I think we often tend to, maybe talk about tools and methods pretty quickly. And when you come from, when you talk about design, we might come up with, any designs, maybe quick prototypes or something very fast. And I just want to give you a focus on the side to ask questions first, empathize with your stakeholders, with your customers, to find out what the real goal is. And I thought I'd give you some basic, it can only be general steps, so that might be helpful, and I hope it's going to be helpful in all stages where you work at university and in your professional life, of course. So, I think I mentioned, what we're going to do in the agenda. I skipped that. So that's me in a different photograph, and this is the place where I usually work. This is our latest office building in Germany, and this was taken before the pandemic started. So I'm in my home office, as you can see in the background, and I'm pretty okay with that. And I really hope that you are all who are dialing in are well and healthy. And because while what I'm going to talk about is pretty generic and common to, whether it's virtual or not. If you're doing your activities, workshops, design projects or so, but the reality is that beginning of the year we were suddenly remote. So that's a series by the company Mural, which I really liked, the quote, the branded sessions suddenly remote, because we are like forced to do a lot more from remote and virtual right now. And so I slightly going to take a little more focus on, virtual, how you doing things from a virtual side as well. But they of course do apply to in-person meetings, in-person projects just the same. So if we take a look at a typical day in the life of a UX professional, or say like a possible day. So imagine this person is you. You are maybe a UX designer, maybe working freelance or for a company, and you might get approached by some people in your company, and so it could be that you have customers. So maybe this is Satish, your customer, and then you have Walter, who's your account manager, or like the account manager of Satish, and Walter might approach you. Oh, we've got our customer, and could we do a workshop, like this design thinking or some creative thing to get some innovative results? Let's do that. Or you might have Aisha, who's like service lead from your service and support organization, and she said, oh, could you help with an escalated customer? And can we do some creative thing to please him a little bit more? And we mentioned some UI in the escalation, so can we do that? And there might be Wei, maybe your product manager of the product you're supporting, and he wants to, which is great, approach you that to have some portfolio workshop, and also think about where could the product you usually design for, where that could be headed to in the next time. You maybe have Suzanne, who's the product owner, very agile, and can we do UI workshop? We want to get iterative solutions out, and can we do UI workshop, and then phase out and ship those increments. So you're in theory, feel free to add any situation you know, and you can also maybe put it in the chat if you like, if you have any other situation. This could be very well that you maybe are still a student, or you're you're a PhD candidate, and you are approached by your tutor, or you have to give you asked to give a tutorial towards students or at a conference. So this can be extended by your needs, basically. So imagine you would be going directly in the discussions with these stakeholders. You could be directly going to the tools and methods discussion. So how could that look like? So if take the product manager way. So for the portfolio workshop, oh yeah, let's do a Zoom session and get the mural, and let's ideate quickly what function and features we could get in the next release. If you would look at Aisha, with the escalated customer, so let's get all experts together and to fix the escalation, and can we maybe tweak some UI prototypes quickly to see, oh yeah, we're working on something. It might be the account manager way, let's do a design thinking workshop online by mural, or somewhere in the room if it's possible again, and then yeah, just let's do a workshop. And if we look at the product owner for the UI workshop, it's let's have a workshop. You're the UID, you have an iPad, so let's live draw. Let's live draw the prototypes, and then we'll we can take it further. So what this is maybe missing is, where do we want to go to? So this, and maybe you've come across the situation as well, that this is like all talking about, we have a situation, and let's take some tools or methods, and yeah, let's fix it or let's do it. And what is missing is, where do we want to go? I mean, what is the goal of each of these activities, and maybe what is a bit more of the background? Like with the escalated customer, I mean, why is he escalating? What is the real background? Or, with the UI workshop, what is that? What do you want to design at all? For whom are you designing? So let's take a step back and think about, why goals and talking about outcomes with your stakeholders should come first, as I would say. So if you do not do it, like in the previous slide shown, there would be no commonly agreed goal along the team or like with your customer, and thus there would also be no kind of a red thread to follow. It would be hard to make a planning, even in agile mode. You can't chunk your sprints if you don't really know where to go. Then, understanding goals also means empathy for your stakeholders, and actually valuing the time with your stakeholders or of your stakeholders. Because especially if you look at, workshops, if you're asked to do a workshop or something, it's a lot of time. Many people come together, also in virtual format, it's the same. And if you are doing the workshop, recognize, oops, I think it's not so clear where we are going to, or what should be the actual outcome. So not the outcome like, at the end we want to have a UI prototype, or like, something like that. Then you will need more time in the workshop, and there might be delays, and you might need to maybe restructure. That might happen anyway, but so that's actually, valuing the time of your stakeholders. Then also it will help tailoring the project, the workshop or session to the needs of the participants, because you understand a little bit more what's going on, maybe about the expertise of people you have in the workshop or in the session, in the project. And so it's so you can be more specific in your choosing the methods you're going to use to the team you're working with, because you might have recognized this as well, that when you might adjust certain methods to the skill level of a team, and so that and if you know that, you can directly plan that to get to the outcome. And maybe just as a preliminary fourth step, you can really help the team or the group to identify with a shared and joint agenda for the whole project. So it's even if you're like a freelancer, or like you joining a project within a corporation, it's really an added value we as UXers can give, that we by laying out where we want to go or where the team wants to go, and give them a joint agenda, and that sometimes helps because we kind of maybe if we come from the outside, we have a different view of a project, and that can help to build a joint agenda for the whole team, and that that could build some trust actually for you as a UX designer or user researcher in the team. So why do I think it's important to look at goals and outcomes first and talk to people? Because it's actually important across the whole design-led development lifecycle, or the whole product lifecycle, if you will. I've used the SAP human-centered approach cycle. You have for sure, if you've seen design thinking, visualization of the process. So it's a little bit similar, and because it's human-centered, right? And so if we look at these phases, let's say, so you have the explore phase where you do really early discovery, and then you actually have the discover phase where we do user research, interviews, observations, taking more detail to the market research, maybe, which has happened in the explore phase. So kind of envision a bold future of your product or your service which you're working on. And then you design it, and you deliver it. So that's kind of iterating and then bringing your concepts to life. And also very important is the run and scale, where you, as we say, thrive with confidence, and keep your product iterating to get a better quality, and also scale your product so it can be maybe accessed by a larger audience of users and so forth. And if we take a look at our protagonists, you will see that even if you're approached by, your UX designer or design thinking coach, and you're approached by these people, you will see that they might come from different phases, and they want to work with you in different phases of the life cycle. So, the account manager or product manager, they might want to work with you in the discover phase or in the explore phase, which is great if we could be part of that as UX people. And Suzanne as a product owner might be more in the design and deliver phase, and Aisha from a service side, would be maybe more in the run and scale. But of course, all these activities will pay into the reiteration of things, and will go back into the earlier phases as well. So you see that looking at goals and outcomes and getting us an empathy with your stakeholders by asking some questions at the beginning, it's actually gonna impact the whole cycle. So if we take a look at the steps ahead, so the road ahead, what you could take to actually start asking those questions and getting some empathy for your stakeholders. So understanding the goals and the desired outcomes is like what I say is like the first part. So this is very simplified, of course, and there's so much more we can do, and you might want to do, and you will for sure have also some different experiences, which we can discuss later on, which would be really interesting. So some basic questions you want to get answered is like, what are the expectations? If you get approached by a project, what are the expectations of what they want you to do, and what what is the desired outcome of the whole activity of the design you should do, or like the workshops we saw, the working with a escalated customer, or like a portfolio workshop. What is that where they want to be at the end, and then also further, where a product might want to be in 2 or 3 years from now, and that will help you quite a bit to plan the road ahead. When should things happen? Of course, that's a very important information, because we all know that deadlines appear. Sometimes they get shortened, and sometimes they get extended, and so it's always important to understand, when are or which milestones there are. When do things need to happen? Like when you need to have your prototype design ready, in order to, for the development team to get into the development sprint, and you picking up the next research sprint or so. And with whom will you be working with, and what is their background or status? So I find it personally really important to know who are the people we're going to work in a workshop or in a design project or even at customer site, because it's it's this empathy thing. Because if I know, right, this customer, maybe he's a very experienced production planner, with 25 years of experience, and he knows everything, of course, in his business, and he's been in the, for example, SAP implementation projects for the last 3 releases, and his situation is maybe that he's a bit, he wants to get a bit more user-friendly screens, and his colleagues are, they're younger and they want some more intuitive and mobile design, whatever. So if you get to know about this, it will help you a lot in the initial talks with the customer and the other project stakeholders, as well as, of course, when you do any design activities or user research activities. And any prior history of activities and their results. For example, if that's quite common for us that we, at SAP, we join a project, and these projects might be in very different states of their life cycle. I might get approached by a product manager like Ray, who are really in a very early phase, and they want to get some support on the portfolio side. Maybe they've done some market research and market sizing, and it's really very high level, on a very high level. And so maybe they've done their market research and talked to some customers. So it's good for me to know what the results of these activities were. And in a other project, they might be, they might have done user research, like I had with a recent project where they had UX advocates, as we call them, on board, and really experienced design thinkers, and they did a tremendous research on site at the time still in hospitals. And so by learning about that, it was about getting further, taking this research information, this unstructured research information further, synthesizing that and taking it towards, to be ready to start talking about design. And learning all these insights, of course, I learned a lot, but also I knew what the situation was, what they did, and I think I had 2 sessions with the project lead, where we want to go, and then we kind of also co-developed, how we go with it, how do we take these next steps. So this is like the, if you say, first step. And these are just some hints what you can do. Of course, interview your stakeholders, a representative about the purpose of a session, of the project, and that means really, get in touch with them. And if you're a user researcher, you will know interviewing somebody is really about letting them talk and finding more about what their need is, and this will return to the pay towards to the empathy, of course. which is what you can also see. It's like build a trust with the team you're working with and amongst the team to avoid surprises, because that's sometimes, I mean, it will happen sometimes that you have surprises, even if you do these steps which I'm talking about. I experienced that as well, because it just happens. And then, but if you do that ahead of any activity, it will help you to be prepared. You could do kind of an upfront goal setting workshop with the team. And I did that as well, because it was a very distributed team, virtually again. And even the team, which was then quite large, they all did some research, they talked to customers, but it was not yet consolidated amongst them. And so there were also different views on where the project should go. And so I thought, well, I could talk to all the people individually, but then we decided with the main stakeholder that we do a goal setting workshop. That where do we want to go, and what are the different views, and that that took one session of 2 hours, I think, but that helped a lot actually. Okay, and so if you take the examples of our protagonists. So simple like example questions for the service lead, Aisha, could be, so what is the escalation situation about? What has happened, and what's the real need of the customer? The customer might escalate because of some specific part, but maybe there's some more things behind, and that sometimes uncovers. Actually, yeah, I've been in one of these situation. It was not nothing. It was not an escalation. It was a customer workshop. That's maybe more with the account manager. And we talked to the customer. I talked to the sales colleagues, and we developed an agenda for a design thinking workshop. And during this workshop, because there were people from the customer from many different organizations, LOBs. It didn't really hurt the agenda, but the outcome of what we heard along the lines, what we learned along the lines, was so important to the customer themselves, because they detected that obviously there's some misalignment in the organization because of these side talks, and that's not escalation, but they found actually that they could optimize some processes within their company, communication and all that. And that is also a real need you can uncover, and that actually helps a lot. For the product manager, it could be which product planning and prioritization was done upfront. Where does the team see the product suite in 3 years? So if you take 3 years from now, where should the product be? What are you aiming to? Where do you want to be on the market? And what do you see? Are you satisfied when you look back those 3 years? What you have achieved as a team? Where are you? Where's your product? Or for the product owner, with the UI workshop. So who's the team working for? Like, who are they designing and developing for? Who are the key users? Who are the primary users? And all these things that will, of course, help you a lot to take your next steps. Yep. So when you've done that, or like understanding your goals, not your goals, but the ones of the stakeholders in the project, and the outcomes, the possible outcomes, is that you go and now start looking for methods, tools, which you can approach the situation with. So based on what you learned, what methods are best applicable to that situation? It will be certainly coming from a UX point. We do have tons of methods we could use, and maybe it's not always the classic interviews, which might be the best situation for that the situation the team is in. And of course, we as UXers, as interaction designers, we of course should also see that we, get a quality in those out of those methods we're going to use, so that we don't sacrifice the UX quality when the situation of the team maybe is in a way that you maybe can't really do something. It's deadline is next week, and they ask you to, how can we do a usability test and change, and with 20 customers. It might be possible, but maybe the team is not ready for those usability tests at all. So thinking, listening, and maybe sometimes adapting this expectation at the end, or replanning the whole thing might also help. Those methods you choose for our current situation, it's quite important that you understand whether they work remote as well, and how. Usually, it's not so much of a problem, of course, if you do observations. It will get difficult. We can't. It's opening up at some part of the world, and it might be possible with respective measures, hygienic and physical distancing measures, but still it will be difficult. So, but it might be still possible to do a remote observation, or like that they screen share what they do, taking, of course, all data privacy and privacy and company privacy measures into account. So, and when you have selected your methods and what you want to do, then of course, then start deciding for the tools you're going to use. And with tools, I mean, for especially like in a virtual situation, it is, what are you going to do? Are you going to use a digital whiteboard like Mural? Are you maybe using some other tool? You can also, do some things here in Teams with a whiteboard. You could run a validation where participants can, scribble their notes in Zoom. It's also possible. And it really depends about what you want to achieve and which methods you use, and then choosing the tools. It's the same, a bit similar like when you're starting any design. You of course you directly could use Illustrator, or depending on your project, maybe Adobe XD or Axure. And yeah, but is it the right tool yet? To directly start into high fidelity prototyping, for example, is it the right situation? Is it the right tool? Maybe it's like in a normal situation, you really can use pen and paper or on a whiteboard when you're with a team, or use that digital in a digital format, or like we did with customers, my colleagues in UX team in Bengaluru, Savita, for example, they created some low fidelity prototype elements in Mural, so we could use that when validating these with the customers. And so that's it's it might be different tools which bring you to the result. And of course, we do have experience with various tools, and there's always a learning curve. I'm thinking about Illustrator. Where when you need to get into a tool, so often we use those tools we know, for example, Illustrator or Axure, because we're fast in that, but maybe not the right tool in the situation, and maybe also for the team. And then always, I would recommend to check back with your stakeholders and validate your method case, so like your suitcase of methods and tools, and especially your approach. So revalidate with your stakeholders whether the proposal or the way you're going to think you're going to do that is, if we're on the right track. I found that very important, because sometimes, you think about this could be very nice and this could be a good way, but then the stakeholder tells you to actually give you some background about some colleagues, so it might not work. I just see that Kailash, are you requesting control?
No, I mistakenly, I was just allowing. I got that. Please deny that.
Okay, no worries. Great. Good. So the next part would be then that you prepare a test. You see, it's a bit of a. It looks like UX probably. You understand, you do something, you prepare and test. So that's quite important. I feel that running any proposal of a workshop, maybe of a tutorial, and also of the plan of your design project, running that against or talk through that with somebody else, or maybe test that, especially in the virtual setting, really helps. So it's take a student colleague or a colleague of yours and check whether your methods, maybe if you're using something in Mural, if that's working, especially in the virtual situation. Try run everything, and if you, for example, have some session coming up where you collaboratively work with the team on the design, or you do a design thinking session to storytell about the research you did as a team. So also think about what you can invite those colleagues to prepare for the workshop, because that might save some time. And if you're running the very first virtual session or like a normal session, always I usually send some information again, some nowadays it's not so common anymore, but like ahead of time, pre-pandemic, when working with customers on Mural, I sent some information. I prepared a small video or like a PDF document, what they should do. Sometimes I'd also do an introductory session for that, just so that we have the full time in the actual design activity in the workshop, for example, to not start looking at the tools. And of course, your life, your workshop, your project, your activity is running. So be fully focused, of course, have a fallback solution at hand. It might not always work, that you think you've got your settled design thinking agenda or your UX activities you're running at the customer. And then suddenly, even with all this preparation, there's a surprising moment, and you think, okay, I don't think this might work in this workshop. Like with the customers, you might feel some tension between customers, or maybe they do expect something else, even if you talk to them. And then you might want to listen, take a break, talk to the stakeholders, talk to the customers. And if you have the chance, like maybe for the next day, rethink whether you need to adjust something. And fallback solutions, technically speaking, like now with our remote situation, always think about if something breaks, that you have some technical fallback situation at hand. That means, like if my laptop would crash like 2 days ago, that if you have a mobile ready and you can dial in via your mobile, just to keep at least some minutes running until your laptop reboots. And now in a remote session like ours here, it's really great to have also co-moderators and facilitators, maybe producers, who are taking care, to introduce, to moderate the chat. And in a workshop setting, it's also quite important, that because you might be focusing on facilitating the workshop, and if you have somebody who's additionally taking care, it might be quite helpful. And of course, review, get feedback on the activities you do, and then iterate, because everything is, for everything we can improve and we can learn. So be open for that as well. So because I got some interesting viewpoint when preparing this, and I thought I'm adding also how when you virtualizing trainings or tutorials, because right now we're still in a quite remote situation, and so I got the question, that's why I'm mentioning these tutorials, that you might be as a student or maybe as a PhD candidate or like a young professional, you asked to do this kind of a training because you're now the UX expert, and you should give a training to colleagues or your fellow students, or you should prepare a tutorial for a conference. Now that might not happen in person, but you need to do it virtually. So I thought of mapping these goals and asking questions also to this point. And so when you are asked to have a tutorial virtually, for example, this is the preparation would be a bit similar to what you do when you run this tutorial in a classroom setting. But it might be that there are different situations, because like in a classroom setting, you will have maybe, 20 participants. So, virtually, like now, we have maybe more. So, and there might be also different people dialing in. So, you should, in preparing your training or your tutorial, actually map out again which target group do you want to reach. So is it only your fellow students you have at the university, or do you want to maybe reach outside of your university? Make it a public tutorial to actually attract students from other universities, and thus increase your outreach. So that might be quite interesting to think about. That also pays into how many participants you want to reach when you're preparing that, and that will also help you choosing the methods, because maybe if you're running a live session with 500 participants, you might need different platforms in broadcasting your presentation maybe, and different interactive modes you might need. And so how many people are actually supporting you in the session? That's also quite important. As I said, you can take this for normal workshops, trainings, and tutorials as well, because it's always good to know, how you can split work and how much budget do you want to or can you invest. This is a point where it's when you want to create like virtual trainings, when you, for example, want to maybe broadcast like the chapter, what we're doing right now, like you broadcast some sessions, which channels can you use, what do they cost, or if you want to have a tutorial, maybe that you get it on a virtual learning platform, which involves costs and all these things. So also the same thing if you're in a company and you want to create a tutorial, you will have some costs of hosting your sessions probably involved, and you should know about this before you choose your proposal. And if you're preparing this tutorial or training, and as said, this also always maps to normal situations and design projects as well. If you're preparing activity, I thought these three parts are like the main thing. So slice and dice the material you have, maybe already for in classroom, for an in-person workshop. So if you're doing something virtually, think about the intention. That's coming next. The attention span of people. Doing a workshop for 4 hours, maybe for a day in a classroom setting or in a normal workshop setting, it might be possible, but not virtually. So you cannot run a really good workshop if it's lasting 4 hours with maybe a 10-minute break. It's possible, but it's not really gonna help so much because people get a bit tired, of course, exhausted when working online, and even more because you need to focus so much more online than in the classroom setting. And the slice and dice is basically taking your material, if you have some, and then chunk it into manageable parts. So if your training is like 1 day, your tutorial, you planned it for 1 day in a normal setting, maybe it's possible that you slice and dice it, and at the end maybe have you shorten maybe some things, and then you have 3 times 2 hours in a virtual setting, and that's much more digestible if you do 2 hours per day on 3 days than having a 1 day virtual workshop or design activity in 1 day. And engage, and that is I think also important for novel design projects. Engage with the participants, engage the participants. It's in virtual settings, it's so much more probable that we lose people, because we might not see them in person, and they might go kind of sidetracked with any activity using mail or something. And to make a very interesting and interesting training and engaging training or design activity, engage them, get them into the doing. Don't just do the prototyping maybe on the iPad live or something. Get them also to do something, engage them. And if it's using the post-its or drawing stick figures, it really doesn't matter. It's about engaging them, and that will give you again the trust and make you feel a bit more part of the team as well. Maybe that part is preparing the content, what can be done as pre-learning or prep work. As I mentioned, that for training, of course, this is virtual training. This is really important that you think what people can do as a preparation for the training or for your tutorial, because that could save you a few minutes of time in the actual session, and to reduce your online time, especially if you like doing a tutorial at your university. What can they do as a pre-learning? If some reading, some videos, they can get used to the topic, so you don't need to spend so much time at the beginning setting the scene for this for the topic you're gonna work on in the tutorial. And anything the participants can do as homework, that you also take some exercise out of your session, and then at the end, what remains in live teaching, in the live tutorial, when you are virtually live or online, and then you can use that to make it a bit more digestible, your tutorial, or that it's engaging, and that you don't have so much time burden in one session. With that, I just want to give you some more information, just some links. I mean, there's tons of information about that. So I just brought in some links here from us SAP when you want to learn more about user experience, about our community. So we have like mainly 2 channels at the moment. It's user experience community and our channel on Medium. And there's also some open SAP course. That's our online learning platform. The courses are for free, so you can register for those. Some are unattended trainings, so you just take them for yourself. Some are live trainings where you then work with other participants. And we also have courses on design research, on design testing, on that, if that might find your interest. We also have a tool called Build, where you can which you can use for prototyping, and we actually brought in some learning material there as well. So it's the learning part. So that for each, like interviewing users, observing users, writing use cases. So we've got some chunks of information prepared there. Also with nice short videos, which so that could help you. Talking about empathy and goal setting, there's really a lot of information. There's one link to our channel talking about how with empathy you can really grow the currency of your trust in the team. Design Sprints by Jake Knapp. You will know that book from from Google Ventures. And there's some in the first steps of those design sprints. They also set these goals. And you have always various different methods like game storming, or there are many methods out there. If we come to design thinking, or facilitation of UX innovation workshops, like we're doing it remote, we from SAP, and that's especially the App House, we have a innovation culture toolbox. And you saw those figures at the beginning, the storyboard figures. They are actually from our scenes, which a colleague invented, and colleagues extended it. So you can use it. Just follow the link, and so you can download PowerPoint templates with these scene figures, and you can use them for your storyboarding. It's Creative Commons. So, and there's maybe some link to, if you want to learn more about remote facilitation, here's the mural link, and also some ebook. And maybe just to give you a short glimpse of, this is the innovation culture tools, where you can find all these things, some information. Here is the UX scenes, which you can download for using your storyboard. This is our build platform, and I directly went into the learning part, as you see. And we have for all these phases, we do have some information which you want to look at, creating a persona, or creating a use case. If you can look it up. So we've got some examples and everything on there. This is the Open SAP platform. As said, it's for free. You can register and take part. You see coming up next, we have our sketching basics. Using these sketches, it's quite a nice course I found. You will for sure sketch very nicely. It's also for something, where for people who think, oh, I cannot draw, but actually, most of us can draw, and it's just a good course. And there's some more information on, user experience, like basics of design testing, if you want to listen and learn more about that. This is our channel on Medium. A colleague, Monisha, she wrote the last post here. And there's some interesting articles about our SAP UX lead, Alex, for example. And there's the user experience community. You see there's some similar content, but there's quite some extensive information if you want to learn more about user research, for example. You can always use the tag to look for user research, and we have prepared some tips and tricks, for example, user research when you do it remote. We have a checklist, and there's more, so if you want to know. And I would like to, because there's just some templates in Mural I want to guide you to, which you can use for many things. For example, if you want to set up, objectives with your team, there are certain templates. It's a great resource. It's not just Mural. There's other tools like Miro, or at SAP we also have another tool, and you can just use those templates and adapt it to your needs. Like I did, for example, I used some various information from the design sprint. So I created, this was one of my goal setting workshops, which I used for a project. So, we I had them brainstorming on the long-term goals of the project first, and then also take a look at, some risks of the projects they might see. And then, I did a round of the team asking some experts in the topic space that was internal, just for them to get started to think about, where do we want to go? What is the exact essence where we want to be after the activity? And so that hopefully helps you. Okay, with that, I would like to thank you for giving me time to present. And now I'm quite curious about your questions and later the panel session.
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much, Alex. This was really wonderful to go through the entire processes, and thank you so much for sharing the links, because I'm sure that would help all of us to understand and read the details properly later on. And hope if
Yeah,
you are able to share the presentation with us, Alex, if that is
yeah,
okay, then probably we can share it across with everyone who are joining the meeting today.
yes,
So having said that, it's really great to learn from you. And for me, it was another station. I remember, like, I got another chance to learn what I have done already in the past,
yeah.
and of course, it helps a lot in the entire process of understanding. So, guys, for Alex, please.
Okay, I'm sharing so we can open up.
Yeah,
And also,
can I?
yeah, feel free to write in
Yeah.
the chat if you you don't want to come online.
So,
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Alexa. It's a very nice session indeed. So, yeah, anybody else, any questions? So, we can start the question for me.
Hmm?
Uh, anybody
Uh,
have any questions? So, we can start the QA session, right?
if they can unmute
understand
themselves
it's a
and ask.
Saturday morning for us over here, but I'm sure you can still have questions in the weekend too.
Great.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Uh-huh. Oh, no worries.
There is a question in the chat from Rashmi. How do we access the link? That
Yeah.
seems cool. So yes, as I mentioned, Rashmi. So Alex will share the deck with us, and then we will collate all the deck and the recording for the session, and we will
Mhm.
share it across with all of you. So you will be able to access the entire thing from our
Mhm.
end in short while. I hope Kailash, Vishwajit, by today, Yodi, we can share the post processing detail, right? So
Yeah. We
Yeah.
will share that across the link, and
Yeah.
we will
what?
be posting the video after the session by tomorrow evening,
Mhm.
our YouTube channel.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. We can do that. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see a colleague from Bangalore who has joined in from SAP.
Hey, hi, Alexandra.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Hi.
Very
this is
hi.
good.
Atul.
Yeah, please
Um,
share. Yeah.
yeah, I was a little keen about knowing that when you said you have been to Bangalore and you have worked with people in Bangalore. So, is there like in SAP in enterprise application itself? The context in user experience is very important. So
Mhm.
how the user over here in the east in India and over there in Germany or people over there in the west, uh, how this context matters in specifics to SAP applications, different enterprise applications. Can you narrate a scenario or a, a, a
Mhm.
scene where you have faced, working on an application where you have to make considerable uh, changes when implementing the same application over here with respect to over
Ah.
there.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Very good point. Very good question. But it's I mean, SAP itself. It's we are like a standard software company, and that means that in general, like our software is like pretty much the same on the world, but we do have a huge team actually, like realizing local specifics, such as any tax specifics, nota fiscal in Brazil, and so we have a really good team and the globalization services who are working on the localizing the products in general, and so we So what we do to actually accommodate, because it might be easier for us, when we are in Germany, that we do user research activities with customers in Germany, because they might,
Right. Yes.
in the time we could travel, we could easily reach them. But we of course, it depends a bit on the market. I mean, if it's there might be some maybe some industries or some topics which are some countries are like there are more customers, or the topic is just more relevant. Could be. So we together with the product managers, we usually try to find out about that, and then we do we're trying to get customers and users from across the world, basically. So that's a strong strive for us, and we're working as UXers, user researchers. We're actually sharing. We had that in a in a discussion we had, that we need to do also much more to get a better representation of that. It's sometimes a bit, when because we do have the lucky situation that we have several teams at SAP, as UX teams spread around, the world, and we also have this what we call UX advocate concept, so that we train colleagues who might be developers, who might be quality managers, but who are interested in UX to take on specific activities and roles in their team as a UX advocate or like an ambassador. And with that, we are able to actually have maybe interviews running in the different countries of the world where we do not have a UX team sitting. I said we're pretty lucky. We have a strong team in Bengaluru. We have a strong team in Shanghai, Chengdu, like mainly in Shanghai, and other parts of the world, UX teams. So we're pretty lucky on that. But we also, this way we can use our the UX colleagues to team up and maybe conduct an interview in Brazil, because like especially there we have a lot of people very much interested in UX, and with that also can get a connection to customers in Brazil or other countries to conduct user research or yeah.
And so how do you systematically document this data from which has been gathered from different demography, and then how this data can be discovered? Like the discoverability factor is a very important factor. Anybody can document it, but then in the right time of need, you should also be able to discover it. So do you have that kind of libraries or something like that, where even the leadership team can figure out the data which are coming from different demographics about the same application but telling different stories?
Yeah. So yes, I mean we do have a kind of a library in which we because we have actually a kind of a, you might call it, design quality process, design-led development process, in which we have work with the teams to understand at some certain stages in the design-led development process to see whether whether they did research, and if we could maybe help to find a little bit more about their users they're working on. And so we create a typical artifacts like personas, use case storyboards, and within this design-led development process, we actually store these documents. So that's of course anonymized, and the so it is available if you need to access it. It's quite detailed, but we do not store any detailed interview notes, also because of privacy reasons. So what we do is we store this consolidated data. and we're also working on getting a better process in that we kind of can have an executive summary, what people might be interested, if it's findings across different cultures or different market segments or something. So we have this role book and repository information, and I mean this is hugely important topic to us, and of course we as a UX department we are also still working on that to evolve on that, because that's having access to this research data, anonymized, privatized, keeping all these data privacy regulations intact and have it as important factor, that we and other colleagues who might work on a similar role maybe that they can access that. Very important. Very important.
So you mean if I'm a principal consultant, and being a principal consultant, if I want data of Germany, and I get to know from somewhere that some application is going on in Germany, being developed in Germany, and that same application could also be copied over here in India, then inside SAP there is a way to like transparently find the data in the library. Is those kind of things are available, or like you have to arbitrarily find the manager of that development team and then request them to send you some data, and it's like very opaque, or how is it?
So it's a bit of a mix, let's say. And I also hear like two, I'm not sure, maybe I hear two things. So the one thing is that when you're saying a principal consultant, it's like, do you mean like it's from the view of an implementation consultant? Or is it or UX consultant?
Research. Basically, I'm a principal consultant user experience. So I do research part and the user experience and the designing part. And basically, like when there's a very vague idea, and then I start developing the concept. Like I get the cloud.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, so that the way it would be is that if you would be right now, mainly the UX community has access to that data. As for us, I mean, if you were like a development project and you work on that, of course you have also access to that. So right now we do have access mainly to the UX folks, and you can search basically for like we have it user centric, so persona centric, the whole thing. So we store it mainly tagged to the persona. So if it's like a financial accountant or a production planner, that's how you can find information. Yeah,
and I'm sure linguistics will also be playing a lot of role in this, because in India the way our thinking, everyone's thinking is shaped is by linguistics. So we think about in our mother tongue, and only then we can figure out what exactly is happening around us. So from that perspective, how systematic things are in SAP in the maturity model of user experience, arbitrarily.
Maybe can you elaborate a little bit what you mean, like on a systemic? Because I'm not sure if I got you right.
So a lot of linguistics matter in case of supply chain, and SAP is a lot of supply chain enterprise applications. Now, the way things happen over here, people been talking in their mother tongue, and their way of thinking is very different from the way somewhere else it would be. So similarly, the applications also need to be personalized according to Indian mother tongue or Indian linguistic or the dictionary of our words, common words which we use. So in that, there's a maturity of an organization from linguistic perspective, that how mature that organization is in personalization of user experience and overall in user experience also. So how good SAP is in it?
Yeah, I mean, so what we have is, I mean, we do have like if you think of like adapting any text and texts and words and everything. So we call it like the assistance experts, which bring in like the tone of voice of how like menus read and so on. So we have experts on that, and we also have like these localization experts. So there's a clear process for involving user assistance and thus having the combination of user assistance and user experience, getting it get it working together, that we get language right, like in general, also like in English, if is it the right language of the user, are we having it on a standard, and then these things
Right.
get translated. So we have translation experts for like all the language SAP is using, and who of course then have a dedicated viewpoint. And then also sometimes I had that with a GDPR project,
Right. Yes.
where we actually it was for Germany, because we had to like adapt the language and the tone of voice towards the German speaking users, because it was just not being understood at all. And for the I would say, if you extend it to the cultural side, so we, in our user experience organization, we also have cross-culture experts who are like anthropologists and do specific research on exactly these topics. And we work with colleagues like from other locations, for example in China or so, to get more information about that, which could be fused into the personalization and the adaptation of the user experience our users see in those different countries.
This anthropologist aspect is very interesting, actually, because in very few organizations which have a pretty good UX maturity, only there you can find anthropologists, full-time anthropologists, and also the organization need to be big enough to
yes, of course, to host these different
yes,
sets of experiences.
specializations.
Yes.
So in
And
case of an
thanks a lot,
application,
Ratul, for the question.
I
Let's
just have
just
one last
see if
question.
others have. Okay,
Yes.
sure. Because we have 10 more minutes. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Ratul.
Okay. So in case of anthropologist, at what point in the UX process or UX research process or the inception of idea, at what point do you get access to them, or do you try to include them in your team? Is it from the beginning, or is it somewhere at a later stage?
I mean, the like our colleagues who are specifically in the looking at that, at the cultural differences, and like our, you could say, anthropologists. So they are actually doing kind of really primary research as well. So they are doing some not always project specific things, but they also run projects on kind of self-initiated, you could say, but not, of course, not self-initiated, but by in correspondence with our management, UX management. But they have specific projects looking, for example, if we if there should be, with our new Fiori 3 guidelines, there has been some, long, like upfront, quite some time before that those guidelines were released. They did some specific projects on that, which then fused into we could say the generic knowledge of the UX community. So they were not. For that, we also might not have so many. I mean that those persons are working in normal projects as well, but it's more that we kind of have them fuse their knowledge they receive from their research into the broader UX community. So we have kind of a generic knowledge in that, which is then fused into the specific application projects. And of course, if there's any specific need, like from one colleague I knew that they've been drawn into a project, an actual application project, so that can also happen. But the main focus is actually to get a primary research, which then fuses into the knowledge, kind of the knowledge base of all available UX community.
Thanks, Alexandra. That's all.
Sure, Ratul. Thank you for your question.
This queries.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ratul. Anyone else from the group? Any questions for Alex?
Alex,
Yes, Kailash, go ahead.
Since there are a lot of tools in terms of UX, okay, and for the very beginners who want to be in the UX, they are keen to learn or master a tool rather than getting into the skills that the goals in mind. The specific goal means, let's say they can pick 2 or 3 goals in mind and learn a tool which facilitates that those goals. Means for the starters who are getting into UX, means your take on in this the goals that can set initially, means for the very beginners who want to get into the UX.
So the
because they generally want to master the tool rather than not taking a goal. Means they can start with a very small goal. And my question is that what are those small goals initially for them to be? Rather than getting started with the tool itself.
Yes. So the so you ask what could be those small goals instead of looking at the tools directly. Yes. When they get started in UX. So the I think it's one of the key things in user experience is that you're working human centered. If you're like working with the interaction of physical products or software products or even services, if you do service design, I think I personally think an important thing is to learn about these creating empathy, like learning to ask questions. So that means that could be also important when you like work on a university assessment, for example. So what is the context you are working in, or will you be working in? What's the context of the project? Like from a thematical point of view, which industry is that? What are like typical users? What are typical processes? So these are like the kind of research you could do. For an example, if you're having a design project or UX project for I don't know if you're starting off or still at university, that you have to do a sample project of designing a certain app, and it is that learning about what's the context, who are your target users, and what is the background of that, and learning about how you could do that a bit on your own, of course, as well. For example, when I'm assigned to a new project, I of course there will be talks with the stakeholders or something, but before that, and I tend to look up a few things like, is it, what is this topic about? Like I was part also with my colleagues from India. in a very specific oil and gas project, a very specific topic, and I heard about it, but I didn't really have a clue, to be honest. And then I investigated. So what does this term mean? Okay, SAP obviously uses a bit of a different terminology. So what's the background? Okay, it's about accounting and contracts and all that. And so I used basically this kind of research method in getting a little bit more knowledge about the context I will be working in. So I think that is an important goal to maybe that you achieve a bit of a security to know where you're going to be working in. And this security, that's a personal thing. I feel a bit more, bit more secure and prepared if I've done that research, Mm.
Thank you for your reply.
Yeah.
Anybody having
Anyone?
any questions? Then we can take. Or
I had a quick question for Alex.
Yeah.
Though you must have heard this question innumerable times before also. So during this COVID time, when we all are sitting at our home in the lockdown, what are the typical challenges or you have faced while conducting the research majorly? Because we do prefer to conduct the research in person or by traveling onto the customer's area. So what are the typical challenges you have faced, and technically using the available tools or the sites like we have Mural where we can connect through from our side and multiple stakeholders can connect over. So how have you figured out, like what are the typical ways that you have figured out which possibly could help of these challenges?
Yes.
That's
Yeah, very, very good question, Romy. So I mean, maybe I should say that we also did remote user research before the pandemic. It's always a matter of where certain customers are located. So we might anyway, if it was too expensive to fly to, I don't know, Australia for an interview, then we might have done it remotely as well. So we were a bit of prepared for that, luckily. But like a challenge is for sure that like first of all maybe in the recruiting. So if we have very strong connections to customers via our product managers, POs, and account managers. So this is always quite a source of connection we can have. And then maybe visiting them, it is much easier to get towards reaching the end user. So not only talking to the IT experts or like the business analyst in the company, but really getting to the end user. And doing that virtually and kind of selling a user research activity to like the contacts at the customers and getting their end users into a virtual session, that has been a bit more of a, you need to give much more of a background, I felt. So it's, because it's, when you're visiting a customer, you have, maybe some more experts with you, maybe the product manager can talk to the IT experts and business analysts, and while you're doing the interviews. So there's much more going on, while in a virtual session, usually it's more structured, and at the beginning I felt there was a bit more of a might be difficult to get you to our end users. So I felt it's more like step by step. So you first really need to talk to the main stakeholders at the company, and kind of sell why it's so important to reach the end user, and then So I felt that was a bit more, and maybe some end users also might not have the the wide range of tools available. I mean, now many have. So it's always a tool question. So there might be some customers who are still not allowed to use Zoom, for example. So they might use Teams, and some might use Skype. But then some that might have in some parts of the world might have a bit of a challenge with the bandwidth. So you really need to always check again with the question. So you need to investigate when you run usability sessions about the technical, where are they, what bandwidths do they have, which tools are they using or are they allowed to use. So you really need to see what the company has, and if they can use Teams at all, or if they can use Zoom at all. And so this is you could say maybe a challenge, because you need to check much more things up front.
Absolutely,
If you recruit yourself,
No, it makes sense, because this, from my, for me, this, more than the handling the customers, finding out the right tool which could help in collaborating more seamlessly had been one of the major challenge till now. So yes, so I think just having the common understanding and being able to access those tools at the right time, because even timing, though we have made ourselves flexible with respect to timing, like, okay, if there is a technical glitch somehow, if there is a Wi-Fi error or something which cannot be taken care of, we will all be available for the next slot probably. So that flexibility we all have had, we have gained that empathy towards each other, I can say. So yes, thanks, Alex.
Yeah, and maybe to add this very good point, Romy, that I think I mentioned it, that you might you might be, for example, with a round of you maybe have a focus group with a few customers, and you maybe introduced a digital whiteboard like Mural, and you working with them, and you kind of directing this. So you like maybe you writing the post-its while they talk and so on. And then if you maybe get them to also participate, that's something different, because they need to get active. Then they should need to have access, of course. They might need to be allowed. And then you need to train them as well, because even if some tools are really easy to use, if they haven't used them, then it's really good to have a small training or prepare some video for them, so they can actually work with you and participate, and give you direct feedback with a post-it on your prototype, which you copied into the digital whiteboard, for example. Very good point.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks so much, Alex. Any other question? I think we have 2 minutes, so we can wrap up. And
hello.
I think Mateti had a question.
Yeah, it's a very small question. We can conclude with that. Actually, in my first case study, I wanted to start my UX career, so I'm looking for my case studies. So what are the minimum deliverables we have to give in a case study, like the starting one, the beginner for me?
Maybe Mateti, could you say like what you mean with a case study? When you said you needed to give a case study, is like a portfolio, or?
I wanted to make a case study like on the project I worked. So what are the deliverables I have to include in that case study as
and
a
kind of the case study to kind of report, to present it to others what you did.
Yes.
Okay.
Into my portfolio.
Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, I think it's very for me, it would be really interesting to always see how you got to somewhere, you know. It might be that I'm sure you created some really great interaction, some UI screens, and I would be, you know, always interested. How did you get there? You know, it would be great to understand, you know, again, you know, what maybe was the initial goal of the project you had. Then, you know, what, you know, how did you then get the contextual information about the users? You know, how did you find out what the key needs or pain points of those key users who will use your application? How did you get there? And you know, from researching about this user, how do you actually got to the design? So what, you know, how did you break it down from the information you learned about the users or about the context, and how did you get to your design? And maybe, you know, why you iterated, you know, when you did the usability testing or validation, you know, how did you set that up, you know, and how kind of before and after, you know, what did you learn? And, you know, that process would be, I think, would be interesting. And also to show, you know, um, that you're open to learn from what you receive back from your users, or like from stakeholders, if there's any feedback. I think that would be interesting for like a broad case study. If you think about like a case study, as Ratul actually said, like for like an executive summary, it might be a little bit different, because then, you know, some high level management wants to know, okay, so you did the research, who, you know, how many participants did you interview, which customers, or, you know, which demographic and cultural background did they have, what was the sample size, and what were your, you know, key findings, because depending on what they need to decide, you know, do they need to decide whether they invest in that project, so you might want to then,
Yeah.
you know, what were the key findings, and what are your suggestions, maybe your proposals based on what you've got from your research.
Okay.
Mm?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sure.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everyone. So, any other question? Otherwise, I think we can wrap up for the day. Okay, I think we don't have any further questions. So, thank you so much, Alex, for spending the time with us. And it was lovely to have you in the session and learn from you. It
Yeah,
really
thank you.
helped me a lot, and I am sure the entire group a lot. And so, we will be sharing the recording of the session with you also, Alex, and with everyone in the team. And
Wonderful.
Kailash or Bishwajit, they will share the recording over an email or in our social networking site. So I will share the links with you, Alex, if you want to follow the site. So
Mhm.
having said that, yes, have a great weekend and take care, stay safe, because
Yes.
this is the time we all have to take care. Suddenly, while this discussion was going on, I heard something bad for a colleague of mine from a previous organization. She
Mm.
passed away. So yes, take care and nothing more
Yeah,
than that. And keep connected with your family, with everyone, and with your colleagues and your friends, and do check in with them whenever needed. So that's
yes,
the
yes.
last thing maybe probably I would like to say from my side. Yes.
Very good point, Romy. Very good point. Mm.
So
Romy, ma'am, do we
Mm.
have any WhatsApp group for the Kolkata
yes,
IDF community?
we have Madhuri, we have. So let's do one thing. Let me share the group link over here.
Yeah,
Just
thank
a
you, ma'am.
minute.
Will
In
be
case, yeah, in case if you want to join. So
Mm. So
Yeah,
thank you very
thanks,
much
Alex.
for inviting. Sorry.
Uh, no, yeah. It's Vishwajit there. Yeah, thanks. It's a very nice session, indeed, actually. We really learn a lot of things. So, yeah, hope everybody should stay safe, as Jami mentioned in that thing. Yeah, so
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very
So I
much for
have
having me.
pasted the
And
link, yeah, to the WhatsApp group. Thanks everyone. Thanks so much, Alex, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for your
Thank,
time. Yeah.
thank
So
you.
we will keep in touch and we will connect. Yeah, later on. Sure.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
So
Thank
Have
you,
a good
everyone.
bye.
rest of the day and
Bye.
weekend.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye
Bye.
bye.